Emberscale, the slightly terrifying, as he was known on the official rolls of the Draconic Confederacy, hunched behind a granite column outside the Elm Street Community Arts Center and tried to breathe normally. His bronze chest plates rose and fell in quick, shallow gulps. Each exhalation released a puff of smoke that curled around the posted flyer advertising Improv for Absolute Beginners. Find your inner yes and Mondays and Wednesdays, 6-8 p.m. instructor Marla Harper humans crowded the lobby, chattering about traffic, soy milk lattes, and whether the city's minor league ball club would ever reach the playoffs. None of them seemed to notice the dragon skulking on the plaza, though, to be fair, Emberscale had chosen the Obfuscate Presence spell from Chapter 7 of The Polite Dragon's Guide to Interspecies Coexistence. The spell worked best on passers-by who weren't expecting dragons, but it did nothing for Emberscale's trembling knees. Hide under a mountain for 300 years? Piece of ember cake. Face a room of polite strangers? Absolute nightmare. He touched the white plastic name badge the registrar had given him. Emmett Scott. Human names, the clerk explained, helped ease tension. Emberscale wasn't sure when a 24-foot winged reptile had ever put anyone completely at ease, but he appreciated the gesture. One small step, he muttered. His talons, freshly manicured, clicked against the stone. He forced himself through the glass doors. The lobby smelled of detergent and paint, with a faint undernote of burnt popcorn. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. At the reception desk, a teenager wearing earbuds looked up, yelped, and reflexively stamped the large exotic animal entry permit pinned to a clipboard. Fire code regulations required any building that admitted dragons to upgrade its sprinkler system, and tiny brass nozzles, recently installed, dotted the ceiling like a fleet of metallic mosquitoes. Down the hall, room 3B, the teen managed, pointing with a trembling neon highlighter. Thank you kindly, Emberscale whispered, lowering his head so that his horns didn't scratch the acoustic tiles. He shuffled along, scales scraping. The corridor echoed with each anxious exhalation. Inside room 3B, 16 folding chairs formed a circle. A bald human with the walrus mustache pantomimed fishing. Another pretended to be a trout, gasping on the carpet. Laughter bounced off the cinder block walls. Marla Harper, slim, silver head, and wearing red Converse sneakers, spotted the bronze snout protruding through the doorway. Without missing a beat, she clapped and called, "New student! Everybody give Emmett a big yes and welcome." Yes and welcome, the group chorused. Emberscale stepped in, stooping. Even seated, he towered over the room, wings folded tight like umbrellas in a storm bucket. The folding chair assigned to him had been replaced with a reinforced park bench. "Hi," he said, voice crackling like logs in a hearth. I'm Emmett, from the hills." "Hi, Emmett." "Ha ha ha," they replied, genuinely cheerful, though a few dripped perspiration that was not entirely due to the warm HVAC. Marla consulted her clipboard. "Goal, check-in week, everyone shares why they're here." The mustached fisherman spoke first. "I'm Gary. I freeze during office presentations. Want to loosen up?" A petite woman with bubblegum hair. "Maya. Learning to trust my instincts." Around the circle they went until Marla nodded toward the dragon. Emberscale swallowed a coal of anxiety. "Stick to the script we practiced," he told himself. Was am. Terrified of large crowds." Smoke leaked from his nostrils. "I aspire to tell stories at the annual Draconic Summit. Thousands of dragons, griffins, and at least one very sarcastic kraken. But the moment I imagine all those eyes, my brain shudders like a tavern at dawn." No one laughed. They listened. Emberscale added in a near whisper, "I'd like to learn how to breathe without, igniting things." Marla beamed. "That's beautiful, Emmett. Improv is the art of jumping and trusting your partners to catch you. We'll practice catching one another, figuratively, of course." "Or literally," muttered Gary, eyes on the dragon's wings. The first exercise was Zip Zap Zop, a classic energy-passing game. Emberscale's talons clacked nervously when he clutched the imaginary spark and zapped it across the circle. The spark flew smoothly, until he panicked, inhaled, and a mini gout of flame shot from his mouth. Instantly, every sprinkler in 3B hissed alive. Water hammered the tile floor, soaking shoes, scripts, and one unlucky improviser's gluten-free energy bar. Gary yelled, Maya shrieked, Marla jumped, but then she started giggling. Well, she said, hair plastered to her forehead, that's one way to cool off a hot scene. The class erupted in laughter. Emberscale's cheeks, normally flame-proof, felt warm. They're laughing with me, not at me, he realized. The discovery shivered through him like cool mountain air. Reset, Marla called when the sprinklers clicked off. Maintenance said they're dragon sensitive. No big deal. Let's embrace the chaos. Try exhaling through the nostrils instead of the tonsils, okay? Understood, Amberscale croaked. Over the next weeks, he commuted from his cave outside town, flying pre-dawn so no news helicopters would panic. Each session introduced fresh games, party quirks, world's worst, emotional symphony. Each game included, almost inevitably, a moment when Emberscale choked on nerves, sputtered sparks, and triggered the sprinklers. So frequently, in fact, that the janitorial staff posted a laminated sign on 3B's door. Towels inside. But something marvelous occurred between soakings. Emberscale began to laugh. He laughed when Gary improvised as Shakespearean dentist, when Maya played a sock puppet running for mayor, when two shy college students performed an operatic breakup between a waffle and its syrup. His booming, crackling laughter filled the room, a sound like glaciers calving into the sea, and every time he laughed, he forgot to be afraid. One rainy Wednesday, Marla announced the class showcase, an open performance in the Art Center Theater, 3 weeks away. Invite friends and enemies, she said. One rule, nobody apologizes for being themselves on stage. The blood in Emberscale's ears roared louder than any waterfall. Showcase! Audience. Flashbacks of derailed story times at the summit where fellow dragons had looked at him with pity or impatience. His talons scratched grooves in the linoleum. Marla knelt beside the bench. We've got your back, Emmett? And the sprinklers got us all. He wanted to believe her. That night, inside his cavern home, Emberscale practiced deep diaphragmatic breaths. Laughter is stronger than fire, he told his reflection in a stalactite mirror. He considered sewing a stage costume, maybe a bow tie to signal friendly dragon, but the needle kept melting between his claws. Rehearsals intensified. The group pushed into long-form improv, building 30-minute narratives called Herald. Emberscale, cast regularly as voice of reason characters, learned to tag scenes, heighten ideas, call back earlier jokes. Gary stopped freezing. Maya trusted her instincts. Even the sprinklers seemed to cooperate, until the night they rehearsed a scene set in a fireworks factory. Emberscale's line, "What could possibly go wrong?" The audience of folding chairs never heard the punchline. Water cannons roared from the ceiling before he delivered it. 2 hours later, Marla and Emberscale wrung their clothes in the parking lot. Rain clouds gathered overhead like extras joining the fun. You know, Marla said, physical tells are a gift on stage. Tells? Emberscale's frill drooped. The way you steam when you're embarrassed. The little cough singe when you're annoyed. If an audience sees you fighting that, they get nervous. If they see you using it, they relax. How does one use involuntary combustion? Maybe, she suggested, let the first puff happen on purpose, a cell phone. Punchline, boom steam. They'll laugh because you showed them the worst and survived it. That evening, Emberscale lay awake on his hoard of not particularly valuable coins. Stage fright had stalled his treasure-gathering career. He replayed Marla's words, show them the worst, survive it. He pictured stepping onto the showcase stage, exhaling a signature plume, and instead of shrieks, hearing applause. By showcase night, the Art Center auditorium was packed. Employees from Gary's office, Maya's cousins live streaming on their phones. Half the janitorial crew armed with mops and good humor. Word had spread about the sprinklers, and some spectators wore ponchos. Backstage, Emberscale paced, leaving singe marks on the hardwood. He peered through the curtain. Row 3 included a patchwork seating of mythical relations, an elderly wyvern knitting, a teenage griffin snapping gum, even old Arcturus, a 90-foot ice dragon whose breath reportedly froze hurricanes. They'd come out of curiosity or solidarity. He wasn't sure which frightened him more. The house lights dimmed. Marla bounded on stage. Welcome, humans and non-humans, to Improv for Absolute Beginners, featuring Emmett Scott and friends, each claws, hooves, talons. The ensemble jogged out, waving. Emberscale lumbered behind, heart slamming like a bass drum in a thunderstorm. He took his mark center right, benched, discreetly waiting if he needed it. First game, four corners, emotions cycling with every rotation. Maya directed, happy? They rotated. Suspicious? Rotate. Amorous? Audience roared as Emberscale gazed longingly at Gary's kneecap. So far, no sparks. Second game, world's worst. Prompt, wedding toast. Emberscale waddled forward, cleared his throat, and in a monotone tittered. When I met the groom, he was half the man he is now because I accidentally singed off his eyebrows. Steam trickled from his nostrils. Laughter cascaded from the seats. No sprinklers. Interesting. Mid-show break backstage, performers high-fived. Emberscales tingled with adrenaline and something sweeter joy. He realized he was still terrified, but the terror was riding shotgun, not at the wheel. Final act, a long-form herald titled Untamed, inspired by audience suggestions, library, cactus, and conga line. Scenes unfolded. A cactus who wanted to borrow books, a librarian desperate to dance, an interstellar conga spanning galaxies. In the second beat, Emberscale played Mr. Cinders, a shy flamethrower hired as library security. When Maya's cactus whispered, "Don't hurt me," Emberscale answered, "My dear, the only thing I burn these days is toast," metaphorical toast. He chuckled, intentionally releasing a tiny glow that fizzed like a birthday sparkler. The audience hooted. He felt the room lean in, expecting waterworks, but the sprinklers stayed mercifully quiet. His control surprised even him. Third beat. Callbacks. The dancing librarian sought permission to hold a conga line through fire safety wing. Emberscale blocked the way, convulsed by stage fright. The moment mirrored his own life. He felt his throat tighten. Gary, now playing a galactic janitor, wheeled on axe and declared, "Security Dragon, the fate of universal dance rests in your talons." Emberscale's pulse rattled his ribs. He'd prepared something for this. He sucked in a grand breath. The audience leaned back collectively. "Sometimes," he thundered, voice echoing, "we mistake our gifts for dangers." He exhaled not flame, but a shimmering cone of warm air, laced with harmless ember motes. They danced upward like miniature lanterns. Cheers erupted. People clapped to keep the motes afloat longer. Laughter broke over him in waves. He felt booyah'd, lighter than any flight he'd ever taken. Then, because comedy loves mayhem, one rogue ember drifted too near a paper program taped to a pillar. Sissel. Smoke. The sprinkler system, bored all evening, seized its moment. Whoosh! Water avalanched. The motes fizzled. Gary squealed. Maya's cactus costume wilted. Spectators in ponchos erupted in delighted shrieks. Musicians in the pit improvised, singing in the rain. Emberscale froze, mortified. After all that practice, had he doomed the show to soggy failure? Marla dashed on stage and, with her best carnival barker voice, shouted, "Dragon joke's so hot, we provide our own special effects." The theater boomed with laughter. Emberscale's jaw unhinged in surprise. Then he let out a laugh thick as thunder, first at himself, then with everyone. He raised his wings, spinning, soaking even his massive membranes. "Yes, and," he roared. To his bewilderment, the laughter didn't stop. It swelled, an organic force greater than dragonfire. It transformed the flood into a festive sprinkler shower. Even old Arcturus smacked his frosty tail in approval, raising a flash freeze that turned drips into diamond crystals mid-air. Somewhere between gasps, Emberscale understood. Their laughter was not merely at spectacle. It was a pact, a communal breath. He had feared burning them. Instead, they chose to get wet together. The house lights blinked, power surged, then calmed. Marla bowed, performers bowed. Emberscale took his turn, wings extended like velvet curtains. The crowd rose. It was the warmest deluge he'd ever felt. Post-show, the lobby resembled a maritime museum. Wet spectators compared droplets the way kids compare baseball cards. You got a Class 3 soak? Nice. I only caught a Class 2 drizzle. Ember scale autograph damp programs with smoldering talon tips, drawing little hearts made of soot. Maya's cousins wanted selfies. Gary's boss offered him the keynote slot at the quarterly meeting. If you can survive that dragon shower, you can survive shareholders, she said. At last Marla approached, carrying mugs of steaming cocoa. For bravery, she said, handing one over. Bravery? Emberscale tasted the cocoa, notes of cinnamon and smoke. I set off the sprinklers again. You set them off because you risked being amazing, she corrected. And you discovered something, right? He gazed at the watery ceiling tiles, droplets still falling like curtain calls. Laughter is more powerful than fire, he murmured. Exactly. Fire intimidates, laughter liberates. He mulled that over. May I borrow your stage next month? The summit approaches, and I have an opening bit about hoarding anxieties instead of gold. Marla's eyes sparkled. We'll install extra towels. 3 weeks later, Ember scales soared above the jagged peaks bordering the Draconic Confederacy. The summit's amphitheater nested inside a volcanic crater, providing natural acoustics and convenient lava lighting. Thousands of dragons perched in stone bleachers, wings folded, waiting for the evening storyteller. Backstage, senior officials reviewed safety protocols, lava vents, wind currents, nervous flatulence. Emberscale's tail twitched, but when the stagehand signaled go, he inhaled steady, just like warm-ups with Marla. He stepped onto the obsidian platform, every golden eye fixed on him. He felt an old reflex spark deep within Combustor Flea. Instead, he grinned. Good evening, majestic scorchers and scorchettes, he began. I'm Emberscale, and yes, I've already located the nearest sprinkler system. For your safety, it's called the Sky. A few titters. Encouraging. I used to think dragons only respected roaring and scorching. Then I met a room of humans who respected getting drenched more than getting burned, and you know what? They taught me the most fearsome power of all. Breath. Pause. Punchline. The power to laugh at ourselves before someone else has to. He exhaled, a gentle plume shaped like a smiley face. Laughter rippled across the crater deep, volcanic, unstoppable. Lava bubbled happily in response. Even the sarcastic kraken, listening through an enchanted seashell, reportedly snorted brine. Emberscale rode the laughter like a thermal, soaring in place, utterly weightless. Stage fright flickered, then vanished. Consumed, not by flame, but by mirth. Back at Elm Street Community Arts Center, Marla's new flyer went up. Improve for Interspection Beginners. Taught by Marla Harper and guest coach Emberscale. Warning, sessions may include light rain. Below the warning was a cartoon dragon holding an umbrella and laughing its scaly head off. Registrations filled in under an hour.